Good morning. Today we're going to discuss the powerful analytical tool known as the SWOT analysis, which will help you analyze how your firm can reach competitive advantage. For this class, Management 685, to understand the SWOT analysis, I need for you to go and read very carefully three of the early chapters, I should say 4 of the early chapters of your textbook, Global Strategy, Peng, 3rd edition. Chapter 1 has a general overview of strategy, okay? Tells you all about strategy, what it is. Chapter 2 is managing industry competition, and that's about the external environment of the firm. Chapter 3 is managing or leveraging resources and capabilities, and we go into the internal view of the firm. And finally, Chapter 4 is emphasizing institutions, cultures, and ethics, and that represents the impact of formal and informal institutions, such as the government itself, the government laws, regulations, and societal norms, values, ethics, and a culture. So what is the SWOT analysis? Well, it can be described as a structured matrix, which we use as a planning tool for assessment of the firm. It sort of takes the temperature of the firm periodically. We look at the internal part of the firm, and we look at the external environment. All of these impact how well or how badly you do as a firm. So it assesses strengths and weaknesses, which are the internal part of the firm. Please go to Chapter 3 and read those carefully. It assesses the external opportunities and threats that come to the firm from the external environment. And please go to Chapter 2. I would caution you not to confuse the internal and external environments of the firm, or you'll be in big trouble. Okay, so the internal, as I just said, are the strengths and weaknesses. And there are 2 kinds. There are tangible strengths and weaknesses, and there are intangible strengths and weaknesses. Tangible means what we can actually see. So the tangible strengths of a firm would be its financial resources and capabilities, its physical, the land, the buildings, and so forth of the firm, and its technological resources and how it communicates through those technological resources. We call those the tangible strengths of the firm or weaknesses. The intangible strengths and weaknesses are the human resources. We human beings are sort of sometimes unpredictable, and so sometimes we are a strength and sometimes we are a weakness, and we have to measure that. The reputation of the firm, what kinds of reputational resources does the firm have? Does the firm innovate? That's a strength. If it doesn't innovate, it might get left behind, particularly in the technology area. So that's the internal part of the firm. Now we move to the external part of the firm, where the firm is gravitating, where it's moving in the external environment. And we look at opportunities and we look at threats. The opportunities we discuss in the form of Porter. You might have heard of Professor Michael Porter at Harvard. Porter's 5 forces. So please go back to Chapter 2 to review these, what they are. And let me tell you what they are anyway. They are 5 forces: rivalry, new entrants, bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of buyers, and substitute products. Now, rivalry, the first of Porter's 5 forces. If it's an opportunity, then we look at rivalry not as our rivals, not as our enemies, but perhaps they could be our allies. We might link with them, as many firms do, link with them to enjoy and engage in their resources and so on. So they could be our allies and collaborators. In that sense, rivalry is an opportunity. New entrants. New entrants could create opportunities through bringing in innovation. When they come into the industry, they bring in innovative ideas, perhaps a new form of battery, perhaps as in the electronic car, that's helped the whole car industry. The bargaining power of suppliers. You might say, for example, if you are a Nintendo and you are sourcing certain minerals to make your product, you might decide you can buy the mine, the supplier firm, the mine, and take control of that asset. And so that's an opportunity. And then you could be the supplier to everyone. The bargaining power of buyers can help you provide through their ideas new and better products. Also, the bargaining power of buyers can help advance your industry through, as I said, through new ideas that they bring forth, or new buyers coming into the market. Substitute products could be such that you might learn new technologies through substitutes that come into the market. So remember, at one time we had just all we had was typewriters. We moved from there to computers and then through smartphones and so forth. So that is the external environment of the firm. Remember, it's in Chapter 2. And now those are the opportunities. Now we want to look at the threats of the external environment. There are lots of threats, as you know. Porter's 5 forces, again, those 5 forces can be looked at as threats. And so when we go back to rivalry, now we're looking at perhaps these firms are going to fight you tooth and nail for market share. That's generally what happens in the market. New entrants. They might reduce your market share. They're new entrants, they do things better, they're better financed, and so on. The bargaining power of suppliers. The supplier might be a source of supply for a critical component that you use. If that supplier decides to raise the price or lessen the supply, that's a threat to how you make your product, right? And then the bargaining power of buyers. Buyers sometimes have a lot of power. It depends. Take the US government. They're the biggest buyer in the defense industry. So they can dictate price. They can say, well, we won't buy it, from you unless you give us a really good deal. And then substitute products. Substitute products can be so wonderful that your product no longer is viable in the marketplace. Now we're moving to the third leg of your textbook, and that is the role of institutions on firm behavior. Now, one key issue that's been left out in most strategy textbooks, but you're very lucky you have it in yours, is that of institutions. What are institutions? Well, and what do? Well, they reduce uncertainty. They're the mechanisms that reduce uncertainty. For example, laws, regulations, government agencies, they tell you what you can do, how fast you can drive, what you must do, and they reduce uncertainty by giving you a set of guidelines and a set of punishments if you don't do them, as well as their informal institutions, that is, the informal norms of the region, the informal the cultural impacts of the region on your firm. These are all, if you know about them, they reduce uncertainty. They tell you, you behave this way in Saudi Arabia, you behave this way in Japan, you behave this way in India, or you behave this way in a Western culture. So those are the informal norms, not just as important as the formal laws and regulations. This slide shows you the laws, regulations, the rules, laws are written down, they're formal, they're written down, they're passed by Congress or the federal Congress or the state Congresses, or even at the local level by the ordinances. So those are the rules and regulations that guide your behavior. The IRS has a rule that you have to file your taxes on the 15th of April. That sets it down for you. You know you have to do that. That's a formal mechanism. And who manages that? The regulatory agency. So for filing your taxes, who's that? That's the big IRS. So they'll come after you. The informal institutions, we talked about that, just a little bit, norms, cultures, and ethics. So to briefly recapitulate, I'm showing you a slide that shows you the three legs of Peng's strategic tripod. The internal and external parts of the firm that you need to pay attention to. So industry competition, chapter 2, please remember that. Resources and capabilities, chapter 3. And the final leg would be institutions, and that is chapter 4. All of these govern how the firm's behavior and how well it does. So now we go to how you do it. That's all the background. Now, how do you do a SWOT analysis? I want you to take out a paper and pencil and draw a 2x2 matrix. That means that there are 4 cells in that matrix, as you can see in the slide. Now, I want you to brainstorm, because if you're in a firm, you probably, the top management team, get together and brainstorm the strengths and weaknesses of the firm. What are the strengths and weaknesses? They are the internal environment of the firm. What kind of financial resources do we have? What kind of human resources do we have? What kind of technological resources, okay? So you want to brainstorm those. And you want to list the points in your cell, okay? List the points and brainstorm strengths and also the weaknesses. List them down in each cell. Now I want you to brainstorm the opportunities and the threats. These are the external parts of the firm, okay? Having done this and listed in each cell strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats, I'd like you to go back and prioritize these listings. So because you're brainstorming in the first place. In the second place, you're going to prioritize, okay? And and your next step then would be to create your SWOT pages. So you're going to need several pieces of paper for this, okay? So place your prioritized listings for the SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat, onto separate pages. Each page should have 2 columns. Strengths, for example, would have strengths, column 1, strengths, column 2, okay? The first column would be just strengths. The second column, the important column, is enhancing our strengths, okay? How do you enhance the strengths? Next page, you go to weaknesses. You do the same thing. The weaknesses have 2 columns, weaknesses, and the second column would be reducing or eliminating my weaknesses. Go to the next page, opportunities. Again, column 1 is the opportunities. Column 2 should say, how do I exploit my opportunities? And then the last page, which is threats, should have the heading threats, and you should have threats on one side, and the second side should be reducing or eliminating the threats. Okay, so now what do you do with all of this? You know, a lot of firms do spend a lot of money doing SWOT analysis, spending a lot of time, and then they put it in the file. So you need to, what do you need to do with the SWOT analysis? Well, one of the things you would do, or your CEO would do, would be to link your strategic vision, mission, and goals to what you found out. It'll give you a baseline to tell you where you are and where you want to go, okay? Where you want to go. And it'll answer some questions for you. For example, does this analysis show congruence with our vision, mission, and goals? Okay, remember that very often we write these wonderful vision, missions, and goals, and then we veer off course and we do something else, and so they're not congruent. So does this analysis show congruence? Or you can ask, have we veered off? Have we moved somewhat or more significantly from our original strategic objectives? If that's so, we want to ask, is this change justified? Because maybe the industry has changed or so on. If yes, we want to go back to our strategic vision, mission, and goal statements and readjust those so that we are, in congruence with what we say and what we do. If no, we want to see how we veered off course, and we need to make the adjustments and go back to our original strategic vision. And then finally, you'll get a very good, a thermometer reading, so to speak, of what insights you have generated for the future. So finally, I hope this analysis has clarified for you this powerful strategic planning tool known as the SWOT analysis. And like all powerful tools, they can be used for a lot of things. So you can SWOT yourself, for example, not just for a firm. It can be used for multiple ways because it's a powerful tool. Use it for yourself. How am I doing as a student? My strengths and weaknesses, my opportunities and threats. How am I doing in my marriage? How am I doing as a parent, okay? So the SWOT analysis, we use it in our class, obviously, for measuring the strengths of a firm or an industry. And I hope this little presentation has clarified this for you. Thank you.